You've probably noticed them. The person who stays steady when everyone else is unraveling. The one whose voice never shakes, whose face never gives away what they're thinking, whose presence feels oddly quiet in moments that should feel loud. And if you're honest, part of you doesn't trust them. Because the question creeps in before you can stop it. What kind of person doesn't panic when everything is falling apart? What kind of mind stays calm when yours is racing, spiraling, bracing for impact? If you're listening closely, you might already be wondering whether this is about someone you know or whether it is secretly about you. Because calm doesn't mean empty. Calm doesn't mean numb. And it definitely doesn't mean nothing is happening inside. In fact, the psychology of people who are always calm is far more unsettling than it looks from the outside. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. Most people assume calm people have fewer problems. That they were raised better, think clearer, or simply got lucky with their wiring. But calmness isn't the absence of internal chaos. It's the presence of something else, something built slowly, often painfully. Many of the calmest people you've met didn't start that way. They learned it because the alternative once cost them too much. There's a reason calm can feel intimidating. When someone doesn't react the way you expect, your brain starts filling in the blanks. Are they hiding something? Do they not care? Are they judging me? But the reality is that calm people often feel everything just as deeply as you do. They've just stopped letting those feelings run the show. And that decision usually came after realizing how exhausting it is to live at the mercy of every emotion. Think about the last time you lost control emotionally. Maybe it was anger, fear, jealousy, or panic. In that moment, your body took over, your thoughts narrowed. Your reactions felt automatic. Calm people know that state well. They've been there. And they learned, sometimes the hard way, that intense reactions don't always lead to better outcomes. So they built distance between what they feel and what they do. But that distance didn't come from pretending. It came from awareness. Calm people tend to notice their internal state earlier than most. They feel the surge starting before it explodes. They recognize the familiar tightening in the chest, the racing thoughts, the urge to react. And instead of fighting it or feeding it, they watch it. That alone changes everything. There's a contradiction here that rarely gets talked about. Calm people are often the most aware of chaos. Not just external chaos, but internal chaos too. They don't believe emotions are dangerous, but they also don't believe emotions should be in charge. This creates a strange tension inside them, a constant negotiation between feeling and restraint. And that negotiation never really ends. You might assume calm people are confident. Sometimes they are. But often, calm comes from knowing how fragile confidence can be. From seeing how quickly certainty can collapse under pressure. They don't cling to the idea that they're always right or always strong. That's why they don't need to prove anything in the moment. They've already made peace with uncertainty. Another unsettling realization is this. Calm people often expect less from the world. Not in a pessimistic way, but in a realistic one. They don't assume things will go smoothly. They don't expect fairness to show up on time. And because of that, they're rarely shocked when things go wrong. Shock is what fuels panic. Acceptance is what softens it. This doesn't mean they don't care. It means they've separated caring from control. They understand deeply that caring too much about outcomes you can't control is a guaranteed path to suffering. So they invest their energy differently. They focus on response instead of prediction, presence instead of anticipation. If this is starting to feel personal, it's probably because you felt the opposite. The constant mental rehearsal of worst-case scenarios. The urge to stay alert, just in case. The belief that if you stop worrying, something bad will slip through. Calm people don't believe worry is protective. They've seen how it drains more than it defends. There's also something quietly lonely about being calm. When everyone else is bonded through shared outrage or shared panic, calm can look like distance. Calm people are often misunderstood as detached or cold. They may hear that they're hard to read, hard to connect with, or hard to get a reaction out of. And that can create a subtle isolation they rarely talk about. What keeps them steady isn't emotional suppression, it's emotional literacy. They know what they're feeling, even when they don't show it. And they've accepted that feelings don't require immediate action to be valid. This gives them an internal sense of control that doesn't depend on the behavior of others. But here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Calm people are often calm because they've already faced the worst version of themselves. They've seen what happens when they lose control. They've felt the regret, the damage, the fallout. Calmness for them is not a personality trait. It's a boundary. And once that boundary exists, crossing it feels dangerous. So they guard it carefully. Not with walls, but with awareness. Not with avoidance, but with choice. They know that every reaction trains the nervous system. And they choose reactions that keep them grounded rather than reactive. If you're still listening, there's a chance you're starting to notice something shifting. Maybe you're realizing that calm isn't something you're missing. It's something you haven't built yet. Or maybe you're realizing that the calm you project hides a complexity you've never fully acknowledged. Either way, the story isn't finished, because calmness has a shadow side. And this is where the psychology turns darker, quieter, and more revealing. People who are always calm don't just regulate emotions. They also carry an awareness most people avoid. They understand how quickly situations can turn. They know how thin the line is between stability and collapse. And that knowledge never fully leaves them. Calm people often live with a heightened sensitivity to energy, tone, and subtle shifts in behavior. They read rooms without trying. They notice what isn't said. They pick up on tension long before it becomes visible. This awareness helps them stay calm, but it also means they're rarely fully relaxed. Their calm is active, not passive. There's a misconception that calm means peace. But calm is often vigilance refined into stillness. It's knowing exactly how loud things can get and choosing not to raise your voice anyway. It's recognizing escalation early and stepping sideways instead of forward. This takes constant internal effort, even when it looks effortless. Another uncomfortable truth is that calm people often don't feel safe being vulnerable in chaotic environments. When emotions run high, they retreat inward. Not because they don't care, but because they've learned that chaos rarely listens. This can make them seem emotionally distant, even though they feel deeply. You may have noticed that calm people don't argue the way others do. They don't chase the last word. They don't need to win in real time. That's because they're playing a longer psychological game. They understand that intensity fades, but patterns repeat. So they watch patterns instead of moments. There's a subtle grief that comes with this awareness. Calm people often mourn the simplicity of reacting freely. They remember what it felt like to be impulsive, expressive, unfiltered. But they also remember the cost. And they've decided that restraint, while heavy, is safer. If this feels unsettling, it's because calmness forces a confrontation with something most people avoid: responsibility for one's internal world. Calm people don't blame their emotions on others. They don't outsource regulation. They don't wait for the world to feel right before they feel okay. That level of responsibility can feel intimidating, even threatening, to those who haven't accepted it. Here's where the realization sharpens. Calm people aren't unaffected, they're self-contained. Their calm doesn't mean they're above the chaos. It means they've learned how not to drown in it. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how much of your own suffering comes from resisting what you feel instead of understanding it. The most unsettling part is this: calmness changes how power works. People who are calm under pressure are harder to manipulate. They don't react on cue. They don't give away leverage through emotion. And that quiet power makes others uncomfortable, even suspicious, because it exposes how reactive most of us are. If you've ever felt drawn to calm people while also feeling uneasy around them, this is why. They reflect back a version of emotional control that challenges your own habits. They force you to ask whether your reactions are choices or reflexes. whether your intensity is passion or conditioning. And as this settles in, the final truth emerges. Calmness isn't something you're born with or without. It's something you earn through confrontation with yourself, through moments where you choose awareness over impulse, restraint over release, presence over panic. And that path is not peaceful. It's demanding, lonely, and often misunderstood. So the next time you encounter someone who stays calm when everything is shaking, don't assume they feel less. Assume they've learned more about themselves, about human behavior, about how quickly emotion can turn destructive when left unchecked. And if you recognize pieces of yourself in this, that recognition may be the beginning of something uncomfortable. Because once you understand the psychology of calm, you can't hide behind chaos anymore. You start noticing every moment you hand control over to impulse, every reaction that costs more than it gives. And the question quietly returns, heavier than before. If calm is built, not given, what are you willing to face to build it?